Hi everyone, Kathie here. I have a new project to share with you, and we're going to create these adorable party dresses. We're going to be using the March 2017 Paper Pumpkin Kit. And before we begin, I just want to again thank everyone for visiting my channel and leaving your wonderful comments. We're going to begin with 3 of the large bunny ears from the kit. We're going to use 2 of the camel ones and 1 of the sugar plum, and you're going to stick that onto a white card piece or cardstock and then just cut around it to create a white border. For the heart piece there, we're going to do the exact same thing, punch it out and then stick it on a white piece of cardstock and then create the white border. Now for the 2 camel pieces, note how I butt them together in that angle, and then we're going to glue down the sweet sugar plum piece over top, and we're going to create like a good maybe 1/4 inch opening there. So put a blob of glue on the back side of the sweet sugar plum piece there in the center, and then we'll put the heart or glue the heart piece on there, and that's your simple little dress. Now we're gonna create the card layout. Just showing you quickly the pieces that we're going to be using. So a white top or a top folding card at 4 1/4 by 11, score at 5 1/2, and that Wisteria Wonder piece is 3 7/8 by 5 1/2 inches. And that glittery piece there is from the celebration from this year. It's a 1/4 inches wide and it is 6 inches long. So once you stick it on to the card base there, just remove the excess. That pretty glimmer paper was from this year's celebration, where if you spend X amount of money, you would be able to pick that as a free product. It sadly is now over. Okay, so we're going to put some foam tape onto the back of the dress to give it some dimension, and then just snip off any pieces that are hanging over just to make it look a little more tidy. And then that flower is from the basket bunch again that I'm using, and that's just my added pop of color. So I'm using the All Things Thanks stamp, and we're going to use the You Are Amazing and then one other one from that kit or that stamp set for the other card. And just pulling out the Misty and placing the stamp there just to see how I like it. And I did want to make sure that the sentiment is nice and crisp, so I did stamp that a few more times. And now we're ready to place the dress onto the card. And we're going to put some pearls on the dress, 1 on the flower, and then a few on the top part of that heart. And for the sequins on this card, whatever you have in your stash that matches the color scheme. Now, once I finished this card, I felt that the 2 side panels were kind of overpowering. You could leave it as is, but I've decided that I'm going to create some smaller little side panels using another piece of the sweet sugar plum. So I just sketched it out. I sketched out the shape just so you can see at the back side, and then I sketched out 2 small panels, and you want them to curve so that it curves with the dress on the card. Once we finish cutting that out, we're going to stick that onto white cardstock and then do the same thing. We'll just trim it out and leaving a white border. And just to make note that I did add a couple of bow tails on the side of that dress off screen. You can decide if you want to include it or omit it entirely. And we're just going to glue down those little small side panels. And just be a little extra careful when you're snipping back that left side panel there, because you don't want it to be too short. If you decide to put these panels on before sticking on that flower, then you should be fine. Alright, I think I'm pretty happy with that, and we're going to move on to card number 2. We're going to be using 3 of the large bunny ear pieces along with this glimmer paper. And we're going to do the same thing, put it onto a white card backing and then just cut it out. And then with the glimmer paper, we're going to cut that at 1.5 by 3 inches. And I've included one of the bunny ear piece next to that piece there, just so you can gauge and see how big of a bust that you need to sketch out. What you could do is sketch it out on just a regular piece of cardstock, trim it back, and then once you're happy with the size and the shape, you could very well just trace it and then cut it out with the good paper. This is the back side of that glimmer paper, and once I'm happy with the general shape, I'm gonna just trim out the shape there, and then right after that there's going to be a lot of trimming, because right now it is a little bit wide, or the bust is actually a little bit too big. And see how I keep rubbing out the sketch there? You want the bottom part of that bust to not be so prominent. You want to have a kind of a smooth transitioning bust line there, and you don't want it to be overly busty neither. And but you want the waist to be also nice and narrow and petite. But right now this is just the general size, just to give you an idea, and I'm going to measure it out with the bunny ear there, and it looks still a little too big. And as you can see, I'm trimming piece like bit by bit basically, and just making sure that I retain that shape of the bust. Continue trimming down each side slowly, bit by bit, and also the scoop, the neck scoop, and the straps. And then just keep measuring just to make sure that it is proportioned properly. And then once you're finished with the bust part, we're going to remove we're going to make the waistline a bit more narrower. Kind of note how much I've actually removed. So I think I'm happy with that right now, and then we're going to remove we're going to shorten it first, and then we'll remove a section on the waistline there. See how much I took off? And make sure that it is still tapered in after you've cut off those two side pieces. And then smooth out just underneath the bust line there to make sure it transitions nicely over. And I did include the finished dimensions just to give you a good idea of the size and shape of the bust. Now that you've taken a bit more off the waistline, you're just going to trim back just a little bit more on the bust, upper portion of that, just to get it back into proportion. All right, I think we're happy with the shape and the size of this bust, and we're going to move on to the small bunny ears. So grab 2 of the sweet sugar plum and 2 of the same camo ones, and we're going to stick that onto white cardstock and then trim those out. And then for the 2 large bunny ear pieces, we're going to butt them together like so, and then we're going to stick the middle panel right there in the center there. And note that it's a little bit wider. Put some glue on that top piece there, and then we're going to stick the bust right over or in between those 3 pieces. For the tiny bunny ears, we're going to stick that on the side. The sweet sugar plum pieces, we're going to stick that on each side. And then we'll put the camel ones right below it. You could very well just use 4 of the sweet sugar plum if that makes you happy, but I decided to use the contrasting camo colors to break up the color of the dress. I think it looks just absolutely magical, don't you? It's so pretty. We're going to raise this dress onto the card panel, and we're going to double up on the foam tape in the center of the dress. So those 2 pieces there, we're going to double that up, And then on the sides, we're just going to do a single row of foam tape. And that way it gives it a bit more dimension. The blue panel there is Dapper Denim and the same top folding dimensions that was mentioned earlier, and I just put it all together in advance. And for the dress, you can go nuts, but I'm just going to put a sequence and a pearl in the center there, and that pearl came off like 3 times while I was fussing with the card. So the only way to keep it on there was some glossy accents that actually worked perfectly fine. And I did put on the sentiment ahead of time there because you don't need to see that part again. And even though I used my MISTI, I still stamped it crooked. And the stars from the Star Punch with the same glimmer paper. I think it looks absolutely adorable. Well, I hope this tutorial actually inspired you in creating these wonderful cards. Thank you so much for joining me today, and stay tuned for hopefully I can squeeze in one more tutorial. Thanks for joining me again. Take care. Bye now.